Hi, we're sitting here with Holly Black, and maybe you can tell us about your new book, The White Cat.
Okay, so The White Cat is set in a world like ours, except a certain percentage of people have the ability to do magic. Everyone knows there is magic. Magic is illegal and controlled by the mob. And so the book is about this character, Castle Sharp. He is a swindler, a con artist. He comes from a family of swindlers and con artists who, most of which are also curse workers, which is what they call the people who use magic in this world. He is not one, and he's struggling with his past because he has this memory of having killed his best friend, a girl named Lila Zakharoff, who is a mob boss's daughter, and he has no idea why he would have done this. She is the great love of his life. He is still in love with her, and he's haunted by the thought that he did this thing. And one day he wakes up on the roof of his dorm room. He has no idea how he got there. He has no idea how to get down. And he starts realizing that there are weird patches in his memory. And so the book is about him kind of going back through his own life, trying to figure out who he is and what he's actually done.
Yeah, and I think in the past books you've written, you talk more about fairies and fairy tales and that kind of world. What got you into this kind of magic?
I've always loved noir, hard-boiled detective stories, heist and caper films. So it's something that I've always loved. And because I had worked with fairies and fairy folklore for so long, I was really looking forward to creating my own magic system where I got to kind of make up things and make big decisions about the world. So I thought I would do something totally, not totally different because it's still dark fantasy. I think it still has a certain style that I think of as kind of, I write and a lot of the same sort of themes. It still talks a lot about lying, the truth, and what it means to be a good person, and in a slightly different system of morals. I mean, fairies have very different sense of like what's right and wrong, and so do mobsters. So I think there's some things that are the same, but I really wanted to sort of do something that felt different and sort of reflected another part of stuff I like.
Yeah. Okay. What I was sorry. How do you work with your characters, because they're so believable?
I appreciate that.
How do you make them like that?
I think I have to have some idea for something very specific about them that I know and that I connect with. When I was, long before I actually knew I was ever going to write the Curse Workers books, I read this true crime book. It was called Son of a Grifter, and it was about there's this woman. She is a grifter. She burned down, her first husband was a developer. She would burn down his houses for the insurance money, even though really she wouldn't make more money. She would steal cars. She eventually conned her way into marrying a millionaire, and then she wound up spending a lot of his money on legal bills for the various scams that she tried to attempt. And the book is told from the point of view, it's told by one of her sons while his brother and his mother are in jail for killing someone, which is what eventually wound up in. And so he grew up in this life where every moral system was totally different. When he was a teenager, he and his friend stole surfboards off a beach, like a really stupid kid prank. They got caught really fast. His stepfather took him to the police, and the police were like, well, just say you did it, and nobody's going to press charges, everything's going to be fine. And then his mom showed up, and she was so enraged that he would ever confess to the police, and so enraged that he had committed such a stupid, he had committed a crime so poorly. Like she was like, how could you be such a bad criminal? Haven't I raised you right? And I was so fascinated with the idea of what it would be like. How would you figure out what right and wrong was if this is how you were brought up? And so I knew I had that about Castle going into it. And I think there's always one thing about each character that I really feel like, okay, this is the one thing I know about them. And I sort of build out from there.
Okay. So do you have any favorite fantasy writers?
I'm a huge fan of 80s Fairy urban fantasy, the Bordertown books that were edited by Tara Winling, Ellen Kushner's Swords Point. I was a big Michael Moorcock Elric fan, a big Neil Gaiman fan, Charles DeLint, Emma Bull. So like there's always so many that I'm like Tana Flee. I read so much Tana Flee, and I think she was a huge influence on all the things I liked, all the retold fairy tales that she did.
So, how does it feel to work with other artists when you did Spiderwick and The Good Neighbors? You worked with
Tony Dirtaluzzi, and Ted Nafee. It was, I mean, it was amazing. You know, working with Tony was so much fun because we were actually friends beforehand, so we knew each other and we could, you know, be pretty honest with each other, and we were used to kind of talking and getting things the way we want. You know, we were really good at kind of telling each other what wasn't working and what was working. Working with Ted, I didn't really know him that well. I really loved his work, and it was different. It was interesting to collaborate with someone that I didn't know as well, but he was such a great help to me working on those graphic novels because I had never worked on a graphic novel before, and he's just so funny and so nice. So I think the thing is that's great about working with illustrators, you admire their work, and in working with them you get to actually, you know, spend time with them as a person. Which is probably my favorite thing. My favorite thing, bar none, about being a writer is getting to meet other writers and artists.
Yeah. Do you talk a lot with other fantasy writers about how to write your book, or are you very secret with it?
No, I'm happy to. I have a critique group, and you know, we meet whenever somebody finishes a book, and they go through it and sort of tell you what works and what doesn't, and they're immensely helpful. I love that process of talking about stories, and I think that talking out loud, you sort of process things really differently. So I think sometimes when you're writing, you can get very down deep into a book, and you're in the character's head, and you're not really able to see, you know, anything but what's right in front of you as the character, and talking about it with other people allows you to kind of pull back from the story. So I think it's really helpful to be able to talk about it.
So how did you feel when they made a movie out of Spiderwick?
It was crazy. I mean, so you spend all this time when you have a project that's optioned, and especially when there's, you know, several different versions of the script, and it seems like things are going well, and you have to tell yourself the whole time, don't get excited. You know, there'll be a version of the script, then the studio won't like it, you know, and they'll have a new screenwriter, and so there's all these sort of points where you feel like, oh my God, it's gonna happen, and then you're like, okay, wait, maybe not, you know, and so you tell yourself, don't get excited, and then with Spiderwick, you know, we were walking around the set of the movie, and I was like, I think maybe they're gonna make this. You know, I'm walking through the Goblin Forest and the big house, and you know, at that point I was like, this is really gonna happen. But it was amazing. It was an amazing experience to walk through those sets, because it really did feel like walking into a book. And then I was like, oh, it's like walking into a book. Maybe it's like walking into my book.
Even better.
Yeah.
So, can you see the modern fairy tales or the Curse Workers as a movie? Can you picture it?
Tithe has been optioned twice, and it's currently optioned with Eileen Staple at Vespa Pictures, and she's the first person who ever wrote to me about the book. That's how long she has been kind of interested in doing something, but you know, will it ever happen? I hope so. My fingers are crossed. I think it would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Curse Workers, Mark Morgan and Riley are trying to put together something for television.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, again, fingers crossed. I know that, you know, it can go through all different permutations and fluctuations, but it would be great.
Yeah, it would be. So, what's your next project? Do you have anything?
Well, I'm working on the third Curse Workers book now, which is Black Heart, Red Glove. Just came out in the U.S. And after that, I have to kind of figure some things out. I have a book that I've been wanting to write that's younger. It's older than Spiderwick, but it's younger than Curse Workers. It's called Doll Bones, and it's a standalone. So I'm hoping I'm going to have some time to actually write that, and then I have to decide whether I want to do another Curse Workers book or whether I want to do something else. So I'm still trying to figure that out.
So when you write your books,
Mm-hmm.
do you think of a specific audience? Do you write for young adults, or do you just write and like?
When I wrote Tad, I thought of it as an adult book. I didn't actually think of it as a young adult book. I didn't really. I hadn't read in the genre in a long time, and I was sort of thinking, you know, I'm writing a book about a 16-year-old because if you are 30 and figure out that you're a fairy changeling, it seems like you're maybe a little slow. So you really want to be, you know, you want to write about a young person discovering this. And then I had a friend who was a teen librarian and said, you know, I think this could be a young adult book, and gave me Garth Nix and Tammy Pierce and sent me on my way, and I came back and was like, wow, this genre has changed a lot. And I think the thing that I do think about when I'm writing a book for teenagers is that I think about what I was doing then, like what my life was like, what you know, and try and put myself back into that headspace. But I don't think about it from the perspective of I feel like I can only think about what kind of book would I have loved, you know, what kind of life was I leading, and I don't really think that you can ever really know what someone else will like, but at least you can know what you would like. Yeah. And I think the same thing was better when I'm writing about, you know, a 10-year-old. I have to think about, okay, what did I really like when I was 10? You know, what was I doing? Where did I spend all my time? So I think about it from that perspective, but not from, I don't know, not from the perspective of somebody, like I don't think about my audience, I try and just think about me.
Yeah. Well, you can tell it's really, you can recognize how you felt when you were 16 when you were reading the books.
I think I would freak out if I had to think about I get very shy. So I think I have to pretend no one will ever read. When I'm writing, I have to pretend no one will ever read it.
I think a lot of people read it.
Don't tell me that. Well, I hope so, but you know, I think that you have to somehow in your mind trick yourself into thinking, I'm just writing this for me.
So how do you write? Do you write at home or do you write?
I write everywhere. Yeah. I have the manuscript for Black Heart back at the hotel here in Sweden. I have been editing it between things that I've been doing because I'm really late. And I have a hard time working on the plane, but I'll work on trains. I'll work the last 2 years. My friend Cassandra Clare and I and Sarah Rich Brennan have gone away for a month. Both times we went to Mexico for a month and like rented a house, and we got so much done in isolation from the world, and that is a great way of writing very quickly, but it's very intense.
Do you have any more writing tips for?
My three reading tips are, and they sound pretty obvious, but nonetheless, is to read a lot, to read outside, you know, the genres you normally might read, to read nonfiction, to read realistic fiction. You know, each different genre has different tips and tricks, and so I think that wide breadth of reading is really helpful for a writer. It's like learning to write a lot. It takes a long time, I think, to figure out how to do all the different things. It took me 5 years to write my first book, and you know, it just takes a while to just keep writing and keep revising. And then the third thing that was really helpful for me was having a critique partner. My first critique partner was my friend Steve Berman, and when we would pass things back and forth, and he would keep me honest. You know, if I said I was going to have a chapter done by a certain time and I didn't have it done, he would be there to be like, you know, where is it? And before that, I kind of could slack off and could get away with doing less, and he would tell me when things made no sense, and he would also tell me when things were really working, because I think it's really easy to not know that too. And I think having someone, you know, writing a book can be a really long process, and it can be really frustrating, and having someone there who likes a lot of the same things you like, so that they have the same taste, so they know what you're trying to do, and who likes your work. And you know, I think is really, really helpful. I think it's also really helpful when you're reading their work, because as you're a better critiquer of their work, you become a better critiquer of your own work.
Okay, good tips.
Thank you.
I'll see if I have any more. So, do you think you write more graphic novels?
I just actually finished writing a collaborative graphic novel with my friend who's an illustrator, Rebecca Gay, was doing this project on angels for Vertigo, and she has a whole bunch of different stories by different writers, and I wrote one of the stories, and I also wrote a story that links together the story, so sort of a Canterbury Tales style larger story, and that was really fun. It was really fun actually to be edited over there by Karen Berger, and I had a little, I feel like I learned a lot from that whole experience.
So last question, how does it feel to have The White Cat translated into Swedish?
It feels great. It's been really, it's so amazing to see your own book and to not actually be able to read it. It is a truly great experience to know that people, that people are reading something you can't read, but you wrote. And it's been great to get to meet booksellers and to meet my publishers here and come here and, see the book.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go down and sign some books.
Okay.